Hey everybody, how you guys doing? I'm just jumping on with my cup of tea and I'm here and yeah, we're just going to sort of hang out until some people show up in the audience and we'll just see what sort of eventuates from the catch up. So I trust you're all well. Thank you so much. Lots going on at this end. Some of you may know that I'm involved in various things, and sometimes maybe I may get myself involved in too many things. But there's a couple of things on the brew I think you're going to quite like, and one of them was inspired from my recent live stream where I was doing some card reading, or I guess probably more to the point, some card guessing. And so, yeah, really looking. Is that coming from there? Is it? Hang on, guys. I'm just going to go and put a. Let's see when this comes up. Any moment now. Hang on. Oh. There we go. Oh, well, it wasn't quite 3 minutes, but yeah, it was just putting up a bit of a light blocker there. How you guys doing? Thanks for joining in. Trust you're all well. Always a pleasure to have you here. I appreciate you all. We'll see we've got someone in there. So yeah, if I'm coming through nice and loud and clear, could you let me know in the chat? That would be greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. So yeah, not too much going on here as far as right now. So you have my full attention. I'm just really just tidying up, and I've been reading through these. I've got a bunch of books that I'm reading through at the moment. I've obviously got the super important ones, which are the core of the practice. I find new value whenever I reread, the Barden material. It's really quite exceptional. I thought, I've done a number of read throughs, but it's interesting to go back over it and see it with new eyes, and that includes everything. Like even breaking down a system like Reiki from a very, I guess, a Hermetic point of view, a scientific point of view, an investigative point of view. I've been watching a number of videos on Reiki and looking for other teachers who've got a really satisfying breakdown of what's going on and what's involved. And I have to say, I am so pleased that there are more teachers online now who are stressing and encouraging, at the least, the importance of practice and also structured practice. Now, when we're talking about energy healing, one thing to keep in mind is that, if we're bringing things through ourselves, that is putting us under a type of a load. And, if we are bringing things through that are quite heavy, if we will, they're passing through us, right? And so if we're working with someone and we're bringing something through that they need, classic hands-on healing, they talk about the hollow bone or the clear channel. As you know, with the Barden material, there's a stress upon, helping people out by not giving your thing to them so much as bringing it directly out of the ether, or perhaps expanding yourself, your energy body, to radiate, and they basically everything sort of past the parameters of the body is what their bodies will sort of take and draw from. And I think that that's something that's not stressed upon as much as it should be in the Reiki community, from what I've seen. And so these are good things to consider. So, when you're working with, for example, if we look at Tai Chi and Qigong, for example, we see that there is body conditioning that goes on, and there is certainly a little bit of a division in the Tai Chi community about the merits and benefits of doing things like weightlifting and developing the muscle. And I think this is no different if you are going to be an energy healer, whether it's Reiki or Qigong or whatever it is. If you're going to be dealing with any kind of energetics, and there's a relationship to the volume of energy. And that's not just energy that you may bring into you, that you have a direct experience of. This is even your ability to command external energy. One of the reasons, obviously, why we learn to develop a relationship to various frequencies of energies and understandings of the extendable capabilities within this frame, mental, astral, physical, is that we develop a very deep relationship to them because it's part of us. We can feel them. When we're doing our element pore breathing, we're feeling it. We're coming to know it internally, and to have a relationship with it at a very personal level within the parameters of our shell and being. And so from there, we then, move that energy outside of us and then explore it on the outside. Now, for those of you who are engaged in the building the ball exercise, where we actually put our awareness outside of our body to feel the energy outside, that is also an excellent exploration pathway, if you will, because when we are dealing with subtle forces and we're focusing our awareness inside our body, I've mentioned this many times before, food choices, environmental triggers and things can initiate physiological activity that can numb down our ability to perceive them. Basically, there's a concert going on and we're looking for a small thing, a small quiet thing. And so, the subtle is not necessarily, it's called the subtle for a reason. It's not, the loud. And so, putting our awareness outside of our body awakens our spiritual awareness outside the body. So we're talking about the ability of the mental body or the spirit to activate and operate external to the physical shell. Now, one thing to not bypass in regards to recognizing the value of this is that straight out of the gate, when you start doing this building the ball, you are putting your awareness outside your body. Okay. And that's really awesome because apart from obviously your physiological noise can interrupt your ability to focus, but also it's a type of it's mental transference. And so you're already learning to expand your awareness outside the physical limitations of the shell. And so once you get really comfortable with these feelings of energy and you do more maybe body conditioning and stretching and Qigong, and you find some ways of increasing your quantitative relationship, then you can, it's funny, if you guys do this, then you'll know what I'm talking about. To use the mind, like in Tai Chi, mind moves chi, chi moves body. Well, forget the body part. Let's talk about the chi outside our physical shell. When you can distinctly feel a large volume of this electromagnetic fluid, and you can speed it up and slow it down, and you can, extend your mind. Okay, this is very interesting because the more we spread our mind out, the more we sort of occupy the mental body. So it's a great exercise to practice and that's complementary to the three transformations as well. And so by having a very real experience of volume, an increasing volume, an experiential volume. So I'll try and rephrase this. We are the more we pay attention and play, the more we discover we can get our hands around. Basically, the bucket gets bigger. We've got bigger hands and we can command more. And that is coming right back around to what I was saying before. When you're doing healing work and you're commanding environmental forces as opposed to coming through you, which I think is one of the after researching Reiki for many years and being a practicer, I think that considering that the founder of Asui Reiki, died from a stroke, and there's stories of other healers as well who maybe didn't do so well. And it's partially because the power system and the delivery system for the energy was passing it through the body. So on one hand, you've got an energy exchange in that it's coming through you. You're pulling it into you, whether you're pulling it in through the crown or using environmental energy. Remember, Reiki is not. It's unhelpful that it's a very vague umbrella term, and there's different systems. There's the OG, the original system, but it makes sense to me after talking to other healers, and people have done a lot of travel with martial arts, exploring spiritual. They've gone and found teachers, and a lot of them have been martial artists who have gone seeking. And something that I've come across, which was interesting, is that there's a focus on this preparing of the earthly chassis so that it is a suitable vehicle for energy to be operated by. Okay, so if you're passing it through you, then even Barton talks about this in section 3, doesn't he, in the appendices about energy healing. He says, there is psychic contaminants or psychic toxins and things that pass through. And this is brought up in the Reiki system. I heard Franz Steiner, excellent researcher and, the practicer and teacher, talking about, if you put a bit of sand in the teapot and then you pour a bit of that tea into somebody else's cup, a little bit of that sand is going to go in. And we want to minimize that as much as possible because there can be an unhelpful exchange there, and it can go both ways as well. So learning to command volumes of energy externally, and being able to draw from that, it's a very sensible approach in my view. And, I've done hands-on healing for many years, and I think part of perhaps why I haven't been burnt out by it is because I have had, good health and fitness regimes and body work and not so much strength training. I'm getting into that more. I used to do quite a bit of bodybuilding. Believe it or not, I was actually quite a large chap at one point. I've lost quite a bit of weight over the years since I started meditating and doing things. But definitely I've got a yoga routine that I do that is exceptional. It's a very physical type of practice, but it involves some spinning and some sort of like, using your body weight to apply give you some weight to work with. But these things have been very helpful because as you're working the white tissue and the white tissue is developing, you're building a good chassis for doing this kind of work. And, as the practice unfolds and as I become more experientially knowledgeable or wise to the ways of what's going on, I found that section 3 in Initiation into Hermetics is a must read for anybody who's doing energy healing, because there's things in that are not mentioned in the majority of other healing or Reiki texts There is the topic of there's dry bathing and the hygiene, I guess you could call it. There's a lot of other sort of practices brought in, but I don't think that the Asui vanilla, or vanilla Asui Reiki, that I've come across has got a lot of. And like I said, he was only around for a few years after he really got into this, and it was more than just doing hands-on healing. This was about having a universal mind experience, and so with that in mind, the hands-on healing was a sort of a subheading under the big heading of Reiki. It was one of the elements of it because, you know, in some ways you could say that your healing client or the person on the table or on the chair is a type of a training partner. So if you're wanting to become energetically sensitive, whether it's for your ascension pathway or for healing or for manifestation, whatever, when you've got another person there, you've basically got another energetic in their perceivable energy emanation. So when they're on the table, there's in the system of Reiki, and this is another one that doesn't get stressed a lot. Like I learned this in my Reiki course. I think I don't know if it was in the first or the second one, but apparently this was something that was stressed by Mikao Sui. And, a lot of what he taught is, in fact, a lot of what we work with, guys, is derivative. Okay, it's just that people have found ways of packaging things that's suitable or appropriate. They deem it's the right thing or whatever. But there's plenty of qigong systems out there that may not be suitable for every person. And Reiki has its own system of qigong. But essentially, there is a cultivation aspect to the system of Reiki, and there's a reason for that. It's so you can become accustomed to a higher throughput, and you can do that just by working on people and with people. However, you can potentially sidestep having a whoopsie by doing more kind of, trees have much less issues than people do. And so they make good training partners in that respect. Because let's just say you've just started doing energy healing and you've got all these really stressed out people and maybe they've got other funky things going on. You will learn about these things just through the practice of doing this. But yeah, like carry on learning. Learn about what other people have said. Look at their technique. See if you can figure it out from a Barden perspective or a Hermetics perspective or some kind of metaphysical back view, because trying to figure things out and make sense of things, I think, is good. We're dealing with energy, and if you haven't, got some time under your belt or hat, whatever, dealing with these things, then there can be a drain or you can take things on from people, and there's little alarm bells that'll sound, but ideally you start with people around you, and that's why in the first what you might call the first degree of Reiki. Oh, that's what I forgot to get to. I'll just hold my finger so I remember. Um, is that we first work with people that we are familiar with, our friends and our family, because we already have a relationship with them. Okay. And so if it's a random person that we don't know a bit about, there can be some unpleasant surprises. But anyway, the reason I'm holding my finger is yes, before Mikao Sui would let people progress to Okuden, which was the second level in Reiki. This is back in the day, or before they were allowed to progress. They had to have a very keen sense of what's called biosen, which is essentially identifying illness through clairsentient fluctuations. So you're basically scanning the body, and you're feeling for, there's a fluctuation, there's a change there. You go, okay. And you just basically, as one of the bros said, it's the hot spot. You put your hand over the hot spot until the hot spot dissipates. And you just sit there and you pay attention to it. Now, that's all I had to say on that. So yeah, I was just sort of, like I said, the importance of sensitivity and reading that third section in Barden's book. If you're an energy healer and and let's say you're following the book to the word, and you're not progressing until you've got progress there, but you're already an energy healer. Seriously, if you're gonna set yourself out on a mission to move through a spiritual pathway, pre-exposing yourself to the length, like just basically read through the book. You don't have to practice everything through the book, but you are becoming familiar with what you're setting yourself up for. And that third appendix or appendices to section 3 of Initiation into Hermetics is well worth a read if you're an energy healer, because it'll give you insights in a very succinct way. All right, we got some. Oh, hey, we've got a bunch of people here. Hello, Ginger. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Angelo. Thank you for joining us. It's not here. We're heading into our summer here, so it's actually lovely, and it's taking its time. We're moving into summer slowly, but it's certainly getting warmer. I'm rocking this because there's a bit of a cool breeze. But yeah, thanks everyone for stopping in. So you've got me. I'm here. Hit me up. You guys got any questions? I thought we'd have some more fun with the card guessing if we want to do some, practice our guessing skills, or instead of saying psychic skills, our ability to make increasingly correct guesses. So we'll just have a burn around with that. News Eland. Yeah, that's the one, man. How you going, Oswald? Thank you for joining us. Oh, I have no doubt that there's lots of news happening. There's always something happening around the world all at the time, isn't there? Things to take your attention, for you to submerge yourself in, for you to spend time occupying your cognitive real estate. What's your favorite Kabbalah books outside of Barden? Okay, so I've read, Stack of the Classics, The On Fortune, Gareth Knight. What's the name? Is it Donald Michael Craig, or it might have been Greer? There's one, 32 Paths of Wisdom. I think there's a few of them. But I've got... oh, look at that. Oswald just brought out John Michael Greer. There's so much to read, and, I've got a pretty sizable library that I don't get a book and read it and then put it on the shelf. I've just got I've got digital documents and Kindle books and books and books and books and more books. And so, yeah, I think that's a great question. If anyone's got any... please put any recommendations in the chat, guys. That would be great. I'll put them up on the screen for other people. So if you've got any books on Kabbalah, please put them in. I know Andre Conscientia is released another book on he's got some books that are apparently really good. And I've got to say, I've really enjoyed, he sent me through some snippets of his books and that leading up to one of our conversations. And he's a very, very good writer. But who else was there? There was far out. I used to love reading it. I read a book. There's one called The Holistic Kabbalah by what's his name? I think I'm pretty sure I've read Israel Regardie's Conversations too. It's just been so long. I just dove into all of them and just ran them through, and I go back to them as references. Where was I going? Yeah, I think as far as understanding, the Kabbalistic tree of life in regards to magic, and that, and setting up your system of correspondences and going, okay, well, Crowley says it like this, and GD or others say it's like this, and I think getting to know why the Justice card and the the strength card was swapped, and this, and why the emperor and the star was swapped, and getting an understanding of the reasons why, and seeing how they can kind of work when they're in different places. I've heard various authors talk about, why, it's not appropriate for here and there. But it's funny, isn't it? Some of those cards are essentially, they're just perfect slots for those paths, aren't they? And yeah, it's really interesting when you find, correspondence systems that seem to just slot together quite nicely. And then, of course, you've got, like I said, people who say, well, actually, it's more appropriate that this card's here and that card's there and this type of thing. I think that's, we're sort of aligning our thinking with people who are seeking, the deepest understanding. And that's it. What about has any of you guys read is it Lon Milo DeKet? Is that his name? What is it? Chicken Kabbalah. I haven't read that one. It sounds too quirky to not read it, to be fair. Like it looks like it's probably Duquette. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it looks like it's worth spending the time on. I did there's a, if you go online, there's a place called KABU, KABU. It's like Kabbalah University. It's Michael Lightman. It's a Hebrew Jewish oriented type of Kabbalah, and so, but it's free and it's an excellent interactive system, and it comes at it from very much the Jewish mysticism side of things, and yeah, it's pretty good actually. Like I really enjoyed it. I didn't end up finishing it actually. I got completely sidetracked. Something happened, and I had to step away for a while because you get stuck in your study, and then you know how it works. You get pulled out, and then it's like, oh, I got to get back into it, and it's like, oh, you kind of lose your momentum a bit. So, but as far as exploring the understanding of how it was sort of presented, it was very good, and like the teaching interface on the website is very good. Like there's lots of what would you say? It's not just sort of like multi-choice questions or anything like that. There's lots of little games and ways to recall information and to match information up, and then they give you a test at the end of it. So yeah, Gershom Scholem, yeah, obviously, yeah, absolutely. Well, what are we talking about here? This is the thing, right? Are we talking about the meta, the base level of reality here, and without the cultural dressing or some kind of cultural ownership? We're seeking to understand universal forces. That's my understanding as a hermeticist, is that we're removing, we're moving towards this kind of universal religion, or this universal way of seeing things. And I've got to say, there is a little bit of a danger in that, because if everything becomes plain and sort of sterile mechanics, then things can lose a little bit of their mystery and romance, right? And so I think that's where nurturing your interest through mythology and stories and art, music, and keeping that kind of, because I've got to say, like, especially after doing lots of stillness training, you can start to become quite insular. And yeah, I think stay childlike, guys. Stay interested in what you're doing. And the cool thing is that there's lots of really, I like reading older books, because that style of wording and that, it kind of, it kind of pulls you back to a different time, doesn't it? I mean, you don't have to theme your practice around a medieval theme, a Jewish mystical theme, a Tibetan or a Hindu thing. You can theme it how you want, and you can align with cultural egregores to add that, I guess, that intriguing flavor to it. Personally, me, what can I say? I love things like Star Wars and Indiana Jones, and that's how I kind of like to flavor my adventurous kind of nature and a theme. Um, yeah, and fantasy settings and things like that. Because obviously we're getting a bit of a reality provided for us that's pretty limited and lackluster, as far as sort of like imagination goes, especially with modern film, and that it's very much, pointed in what it's trying to say. It's got a bunch of stuff that it's become a vehicle for certain themes and things, as opposed to a vehicle for just storytelling and nourishing your imagination, right? It's becoming a bit of a provided and like, here, this is what we want you to think. And that's no good. If anything, it's like those old movies and shows. What did I watch recently? I watched, geez, it was good. Oh, I'm trying to think of it. Hang on. Curate, yeah, bro. That's it, man. That's it. That's perfectly put. It actually gates the parameters of unlimitedness. And we're dealing with forms here, right? So, there's going to be parameters, but yeah, I think sometimes things can get a bit too unlimited as well. And like, here's an example, right? And so in some of the modern movies, they bring in this multiverse theme where suddenly they're bringing characters back from the dead because they can do that, you know, and they can, no one dies, and it's sort of the gravity of consequence. There are no consequences necessarily because we can just bring them back. I mean, that's what I watched the other night. I think I put this in one of my other live streams. I was, I watched the 3 sequel Star Wars movies, with Rey and Finn and, Mark Hamill and that are in it for a couple of them and that. And, oh man, the last movie, somehow Palpatine survived. Oh no, come on, guys. I think they did that with Darth Maul in one of the TV shows too. They just sort of brought him back to life or something. It's like the bro was chopped in half. Palpatine was, it's just shocking. And so what happens is like, you watch a movie and it's like, back in the day, you'd care about a character. It's like, oh, they're dead. Oh my gosh. And, you'd really feel it. And maybe at the end of the movie, there was some sneaky way of bringing them back or whatever. But, but when it's like, nah, he's dead. He's absolutely dead. Like, there's no way. And then they're like, multiverse. It's like, there's a, it kind of loses. The drama doesn't have the same kind of effect. It kind of becomes diluted. That's my experience of it anyway. I mean, don't get me wrong. Those Star Wars 7, 8, and 9, the production's pretty incredible in them. But yeah, I think they're just I think they can do better. Eh? Oh, really? It's funny. I just saw a clip from American Gods, and she was in it, and she was in it, and I think I can't remember what she was representing. It was just a short, but yeah, Gillian Anderson. Oh my gosh, that X-Files show was just, man, that was off the hook, wasn't it? So apparently, one of the guys that I've interviewed, Dr. Richard Allen Miller, who wrote the Holistic Kabbalah as well, he's written a stack of books. He said he wrote the original screenplay for the X-Files, and he even claims that he was the original Fox Mulder. He was the one that Fox Mulder was based on, because he was a Navy intel, basically like a paranormal squad investigator. Take what you will from that. If you go to richardallenmiller.com, you can see all of his works and hear about all of his stories, and it's pretty wild. That's the one. You got it, bro. Lovely guy. I catch up with Rick. I haven't caught up with him for a little while, but yeah, we'll catch up with him again soon. What do we got? The House with Clocks in the Walls, starring Something Black. Is it? Okay. Great magic movie. Oh, good to know. Cool. Thank you for that, Angelo. Yeah, I think movies that just, I gotta say, when you watch, say, like some Dragon Ball Z, I'm too old for Dragon Ball Z, whatever, because it came later, but I saw it, and there's, like they're putting it in like this, and it's like you can use that to help to inflame your practice by really visualizing it, and tense release, but also like you're applying your will, your spirit will, to inner forces, and there's a relationship between that thing that you see and you feel, and being able to actually pump that out and get access to, increase your relationship to volumes of energy. Thoughts on the perennial philosophy? I'm aware of the book. I have not read it. But yeah, I mean, as far as the title goes, I feel like I've got so much to catch up on. To be fair, but yeah, this idea of an evergreen type of understanding, I guess, maybe. Tell me if I'm wrong. Um, you know, the whole idea about there not being universal underlying forces at play. If you get right down to it, there's these. What I'm saying is that some will say that there'll never be a unified theory of everything. Magicians I know would say otherwise, but what I'm sort of finding, or happily sitting with at the moment, is that there are, because we can see crossovers between the various traditions. The elements are a perfect example, and who doesn't do concentration, who doesn't do mindfulness, who doesn't have deity, and I think the cultural dressings that traditions practices tend to become, there's an identification with the package rather than the constituent elements at the very base level. And I think that's where we run into some trouble, because, there's many ways up the mountain, but that fixed view that there is not that, or that there's only, one destination, or there's not only one destination. It's hard because everyone's going to have a slightly different take on things, aren't they? And it's fine. I mean, I was talking to someone just recently, and Reiki is one of my sorts of, I guess, somewhat fields of expertise, especially from a study standpoint. And you come upon conversations where it's quite challenging, because there's popular understandings out there that aren't necessarily what I would call correct, but the person takes it on as being correct because that's the. Where am I going with this? Yeah, I think sometimes there's just kind of flaky commentary that's not based in any type of sort of reality. Not that's not something that it's not testable anyway, or it hasn't been tested. And I find that in a lot of sort of a lot of new age stuff, where it's just a bunch of words. And the problem is, though, is that a lot of these people may not have a good grounding in metaphysics and cosmic mechanics, but they seem to get stuff done. It's like their faith just sees them through. I've got some friends who are master manifestors, and they're very kind of new agey. And that's not a useful label. I don't want to be casting aspersions and labels and things, but it's the best word I can come up with. But I've got some new age friends that are also very grounded as well. And maybe there's a better way of putting it, but essentially they have stuff show up more than what I do. It's because I think they've got this. They're all in. It's not very grounded. I might just take a bit longer. That's okay. Because I want to have a good sort of solid understanding of it. Jason Reza Giorgiani. Oh my gosh. Yes, I haven't read, but I've certainly listened to a lot of Jason's stuff. And he is, Prometheus, right? Right. He is, he's a spicy character, man. I've seen him and Michael Tessarian talk. I saw him on New Thinking Aloud with Jeff Mishlove before. I don't think he'll be back on Jeff's show. Well, maybe they made up for it, but Jason has got a pretty full on perspective. Yeah, and he's very intelligent. Very intelligent. My gosh, and he says some things that make a lot of people very uncomfortable. And now he's not the only one thing is that anyone that I'm apolitical. I keep saying this. My view of the world is not one that's necessarily shared by many. Well, I'm sure some of you guys probably find yourself in similar boats. But just listening to people with metaphysical understandings and also geopolitical backgrounds, and so it's interesting to hear commentary on world events from people with metaphysical backgrounds, because I think they have angles and perspectives on what's going on that you just can't really get from from people who don't. Like Richard Miller, actually, Rick Miller would say, first he turned to science, physics and that, and what he couldn't find there, he then turned to magic, and then he started to find the answers. Oh, that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that, because they're both such wonderful men. Even though, but that's the thing is that you've got these, the political tensions, man. If you can have people in the community with, because, Jeff's obviously, he's on one end of the sort of the voting spectrum, I guess, and Giorgiani's, unless that's changed too. But for them to make up and to put things aside, perhaps for bigger things, I'm pleased to hear that. That's really nice. Norman C. Livergood has also put out a number of books on the perennial philosophy that I found interesting. Oh, good one. Thank you for that, Zane. I appreciate that. Oh, sorry, Norman D. Livergood. Sorry. Okay, good one. Thank you for that. Yeah, this is a great way, isn't it? Like we're coming together, we're just having a hangout and a chat and a cup of tea, and we're sharing this stuff. And then people can watch this after the fact and make use of it. And so I appreciate you guys. Thank you. This is a good way to share knowledge. And so, if anyone else has got any recommendations for good reading that you've come across, maybe you've recently come across something too good to pass up, please put it in the chat and I'll put it up. But yeah, where is everyone in the world? Tell me, whereabouts, what part of the world are you in? I'd love to know. What about Alexander Dugan? There are a lot of magicians masquerading as Christians about these days, but he might be at the forefront. I'm not aware of Alexander Dugan, but thank you for that. Yeah, I think I read something the other day. Something about it was a pretty famous dude from the 19th century was talking about essentially like because I've seen people say who have been in the UFO conspiracy, New Age. There's a big spiritual community out there, that they might watch Gaia TV and yeah, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. There's Fade to Black and the Leak Project, and there's a lot of big players out there. Billy Carson, the Ember Tablets, and all that kind of thing. But where am I going with this? But I have noticed that some of them might get involved in that scene for a while, and and then they something happens, and then they do a hard pivot, and then they decide to become Christian, just like that. Doreen Virtue, there you go. I mean, she was pumping out books and cards and all sorts of things, and then she just flipped on a dime, man. She switched to being a Christian, and now she's slagging it all. I don't even know if her stuff's available to purchase anymore, if she's got the rights to take it off the shelf. But yeah, there was a video that came out a few years back after she switched, and it was quite a few years ago that she sort of converted. Or is that a thing, converting, or she just changed her direction, I guess? But she was slagging off Ray Key and all this, and I'm like going, where are all the Christian faith healers, man? I'm not saying they advertise and run a business from it, but I mean, I don't see much of that happening around here. I don't know, just energy healers in general. But yeah, and there was another lady, Teresa Yanaris, I think her name was. She's a real lovely, nice lady. Made a lot of good stuff and very outspoken and that. And and then she, sort of returned to her. I think she's Catholic. She returned to her Catholic roots. Cool, go you, awesome. But what happens is it's like a reformed smoker. Suddenly you become this righteous person and start slagging off the old thing. Yeah, and I guess it's just what it is. Thank you, Angelo. That's absolutely such a beautiful word, that fellowship, isn't it? We're just hanging out. We're interested in similar topical material. We're celebrating the availability of the information, the preciousness, the vulnerability of the written word. Perhaps, we're quite blessed to have the digital word until the power goes off. We're able to talk about these things freely in a global respect. Here we are, we're from across the planet, and we're just talking freely about things and certain parts of history and times in history we wouldn't have been able to. In fact, we would have gotten a lot of trouble for doing so. Oh, okay. Well, awesome. Go to the States. Welcome, welcome. Oh, really? Oh, cool, Zane. That's interesting. South Korea. Oh, that would have been quite a change, being on the West Coast, then going back to the Midwest. I've never been to the States, but I mean, the West Coast and the Midwest, I would say, would be reasonably different places. Even when I saw the political map that dropped recently, my understanding is that the West Coast is pretty dang liberal, and the Midwest tends to be pretty damn conservative. I don't know. I might be wrong there, but it's interesting when I hear people talk. I mean, how polarized is it in the States as far as the political spectrum goes? Because we get stuff in our newspaper that says, this is what people are currently thinking. And I go out in the street and I talk to people and I say, hey, is this what you're thinking? And they go, no. And then I ask the next person, no. And it's like, I know the media's not, it's not a reliable single source of information, but I'm always curious to hear about things, because it's real people you talk to they give you the real what's up. What's the real barometer in the community right now? Because the problem with media is that people believe what these people are saying, and okay, now it's time to be angry at this particular section of society or something like this for whatever reason. Oh, I see. Interesting. Thank you for that. Hmm. Okay. Yeah. There's things that bring us all together, right? And then there's just, honestly, what's been going on over the last, 4 or 5 years, man, there's just been, without jumping on the conspiracy bandwagon, I've just seen so many different angles of division. There are so many ways to divide a household now. There's the politics, there were those mandates, there's wars that are going on, confrontations. You've got a solid household, a solid family unit, and it's like, okay, we can divide it this way, we can divide it this way, this way, this way, and then suddenly you've just isolated everyone in the household. And some of these are such highly charged topics. I mean, when those mandates came out a bunch of years ago, back during those lockdowns, man, I'm not going to use any other word. I'm just going to say lockdowns, because that was just a form of violence. That is my perspective, and I maintain that. People were freaked out, and then they were staying close to each other and just helping each other out to get through, and then they start bringing more of this divisive crap. And there are videos of our then, this is in New Zealand, our then Prime Minister, talking about how it was, basically going to create a second class of citizen. And she's like, yep, and just being very casual about it and like going, there's a social ramification to this. And, I'm walking past cafes and I'm not allowed in there because I haven't had the magic juice and I haven't got a special card that says I've had it. And it was just absolute madness. And I'm sure some of you in the chat will probably feel the same way. Wherever you were, we saw this madness unfolding, where people, if they got up from their table to go to the toilet, they had to, like that. Or you had to walk around wearing one of these things, but in the cafe, you're allowed to take it off. I mean, it's, and it was, and it's unfortunate because it's still going on and it's still being supported. It is terrible and it's very hard to watch, especially when you've got friends who you've always considered to be very intelligent and also have a healthy mistrust. I think it's important to maintain a healthy mistrust in anything that comes out of the establishment's mouth, personally, because they just show themselves constantly to be there's just things going on, yeah, I'm going to be conscious about how I talk like this because I don't want this channel to be about this kind of stuff. But when we're bluntly looking at things, we need to be honest about it. What's one of those things? Know thyself. How do you know when you're lying to yourself? These types of things. Anyway, sorry, I'm getting off topic here. I think about that team that's currently getting set up to sort of take over the flat, if you will, in January, and I'm like going, man, how could that team not be the they're cool, right? And remember, I'm apolitical, so I'm coming at this. I'm not saying that I like or dislike. I'm just saying, right? But yeah, I wonder. He could be. Why not? It's not illogical to put it out there in a sense that you know that the people who are really running the show are occultists, or as one person said, they're dark psychologists. They know how to manipulate large groups of people. I mean, what is history? You look at it, small groups of people manipulating large groups of people. Usually, some civilizations last longer than others. Yeah, really is. And it's just that whole emperor's got no clothes thing, eh? And it was so hard because I'm trying to talk to my friends who are very intelligent, people who have, I'm not university trained. Most of my scholarship has been, my scholarly understandings have just come from my own application of myself into reading and listening and connecting with people. I became the musician I became from hanging out and jamming with people, getting up on stage, playing with people at their houses, and getting out and exploring the social, but also sitting in my bedroom and putting countless hours in. So I didn't have that situational kind of egregore soak that you might get in an institution that can play on you a little bit, especially if you're a little more impressionable than some others. You haven't got the guards up. You haven't been trained to get the guards up. Yeah, man. That's it. Yeah. That's when you hit up your bro and you're like, bro, you're saying this, but you're doing this. What's going on here? I've tried to have some of those conversations where I've just tried to, bring it down to the street level. It's like, bro, I know there's these big topics in the news right now, but I got 7 mates who all got the magic squirt. And now they're on heart meds and they can't work anymore. And I meet more people who go, oh man, I wish I hadn't got that thing. But it's just weird because then I know a bunch of people who got the thing and they're fine, or they're not saying anything. I know some people were so invested in it and they were telling everyone else to get it, and they invested themselves too much in it, and then it went, oh, wait a minute. Why isn't that on the news, People are getting paid out, man. People are getting paid out from getting that squirt. It's a thing, There's an acknowledgement that there was a problem. And the fact that they forced it on people, they like threaten them to lose their jobs and stuff. Anyways, it's not cool, man. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Freda Spirit. I'm glad. Thank you for saying this. I come from a line of community leaders or community servants even, and I just can't help it. I started life off in customer service, and so setting up a hang. This is my house. You're welcome here. Thank you. But there's only a small bunch of house rules, and that is that you just got to play nicely. We can have strong differing opinions, and let's talk about them. Let's have an open conversation about what's going on. Let's point things out. I'm not getting things right all the time. I'm trying my best to be as accurate as possible. I think accuracy nowadays there are some things that are being said by the establishment that they're trying to normalize into society that are just frankly like, wow, they're aiming real high with their creepiness, man. I've seen some stuff. I'm sure you guys have too, right? Yeah, it's gone from weird to creepy. look, oh man, I guess I'm just going to have to go there a little bit, aren't I? So if we get rid of these mysterious words that, sound all Hollywood and that, there are very intelligent people in behind the scenes who don't want themselves being known. The people who are really pulling the strings, do you think they really put themselves out the front? Me putting myself out the front here. I've copped some crap, man. And look, if you're going to put yourself out there, you really want to get up to like step 4 and 5 and get your Akasha nailed down. And you want to start researching the third book as well and set yourself up. There are things at play that are not conducive to independence, freedom of thought and living, high quality outcomes, wholesomeness. And these things have got near infinite resources powering them. They've got people, large groups of people working in unity. They may be factions as well that are, they fight amongst themselves, but they are joined in common purpose. You really need to get your resilience nailed down, guys. If you're getting into these kinds of practices, the world is becoming more and more sensitive, and you can see that because there is a push to, they're arresting comedians in the UK for telling jokes. Basically, you can ring up the cops and say, this person offended me, and they'll get a visit. So there's this hypersensitivity training going on, and that has some spillover, especially for people who are training sensitivity. Like, if you're a healer, you set yourself up for a bit of a wild ride until you get accustomed to it. That's why, when you start doing the element training, you got to balance them. It's so important to counterbalance the elements, because if you get too much of a new power source, it's like the old, in some TV shows like in Stargate, how they start, they've got the ZPM and the Naquita generator, and they've got these new power sources that they get hold of, which they can, they can, they get these incrementally or proportionally increased sort of power generation systems. This is what we're going through. You don't give a kid a flamethrower. You want to develop a good chassis to be able to manage a bigger engine before you put, if you just got an old Mini and you put a V8 in it and you haven't put good brakes and good suspension and stuff, you're going to probably have a bad time. But there are things going on. I got some photos. I don't know if I've still got them. Where are they? They're on my phone. I got some photos of some stuff happening in the sky on the day that Russia invaded the Ukraine. And I do that because there's just something else going on. I can't just conclusively say anything when I talk about these things. I don't even want to bring these things up because they're so polarizing. But there was some stuff going on in the sky, and a friend of mine who won't even entertain any of these topics, family member even, was there, and they saw it, and I got the before and after photo of what was going on in the sky. It was like this long streak. Apparently these things are, condensation trails, so they evaporate. This thing didn't evaporate. This thing just started spreading out and 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 spreading out. And then the next thing you know, it's all over the sky. And I've got, we had a newspaper here in New Zealand talking about if you're booking a wedding, you can hire this. This is an official, like one of the big players here. If you want to have a rain-free wedding, we can organize that. We've got cloud seeding tech, and NASA have got it all over their website. Anyway, like I said, I really just want to, I'm not going to just spray love and light, but I'm trying to keep things in perspective as well. I don't necessarily want to pump these things up. I'm just going to put these up and for posterity. Oh, interesting. Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't be under any illusion, guys. If you're looking, like, there is plenty of good books and speakers who can give you dot connectors, because things that are happening over here and seemingly unrelated things happening over there and seemingly unrelated things over here and seemingly unrelated things over here, they are on the surface seemingly unrelated, but then you find that there's cross-pollination happening potentially because there's some familiar characters are involved. And, I think one of the things that imagination affords us when we just get lost in players is that we can find relationships, correspondences, associations between seemingly unrelated events. Because if we're always in our sort of intellectual mind, that, and maybe we haven't been taught how to think, or we haven't, you know this, right? As smart as we may be, we're going to meet people who give us angles and, perspectives on things that are just like, oh, wow, man, I never saw that one coming, or I didn't think of that, I'm constantly surprised. But one thing I'm not surprised by is this kind of acquiescing to silliness. And when people who are highly skilled articulators present rational and reasonable concerns and then they're just shunted aside and then have a label thrown over them, I'm like going, oh, this is really happening, isn't it? And it did happen. And it's beyond denial. So yeah, I don't know what's coming in the pipe next. I hear that something's coming down. Yeah, but that's it, man. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, man, you want to get yourself resourced and magically resilient, and that's not some fluffy term. When you get initiation into Hermetics, and you see that there's a body training aspect, there's an emotional or astral training aspect, there's a mental training aspect, and that gives you access to another level. Because, fear is a food source. Your emotional output is that's like a tuning fork, Like, man, I tell you, Reiki cops a lot of shit, right? It cops a lot of flack. But I tell you this right now, those precepts in the system of Reiki, if you're just starting out on this path, on this Barden path, and you've got a bit of a spiky personality and you're trying to you might be doing Barden because you're a grumpy person. You might be like, man, I know I've got to reflect on my personality and tidy up my emotional game or my personality game. Those Reiki precepts. All right, check this out. Number one, the first Reiki precept is do not anger. That, if you write out your black mirror for Barden work, right? And you list things out there, right? The first two precepts of Reiki are do not anger, do not worry, or do not fear. You go down your black mirror list and go, how many of those items that I've listed here are born from fear or anger as the base initiator? And you'd be like, oh, actually quite a bunch of them. Man, if you just give yourself that precept job every day, you grab your beads and you go, you don't make it, I am not angry. You can give yourself an order, do not anger. But, you say, you think of an antithesis to anger, which is, I am calm. I am pleasant. I am tranquil. I am peaceful, and these types of things. Over time, that's going to bleed in, right? But you can use those precepts, even though they're set in the negative, by and treat them as giving yourself order. Just for today, do not anger. You're giving yourself an order, but you're also contemplating, what am I angry about? Because that's going to give you the granularity of like, aha, I can draw a circle around that and deal with that. I'm angry every time somebody cuts me off in the traffic. All right, let's go somewhere where people cut people off in traffic, and I'm going to do some weightlifting there with my personality. Oh, that dude cut me off. Now, I'm not going to force myself to try and love the person, but I'm going to seek to manage my response at the very least. Okay. You feel it build up, that rage, but you're occupying the spirit. That rage is building up, but you're just observing yourself, and you just let that die down. That little tantrum will pass. But yeah, these Reiki precepts, man, I tell you what, it's a pocket-sized version of flattening the peaks in your personality. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate the support because I do play it a bit safe on this channel. But these are important topics, aren't they? Oh, bro. That's a real thing, man. A constant stream of stress. When I think about the establishments, its strengths is definitely providing a constant stream of stress. I'm not saying that we should only hear about good news because we need to be abreast of things that are happening, whatever. But I mean, I stop watching the news. I just get the highlights when I need to now, But there's just so much, there's enough stuff happening in our own backyard without, it's like, well, there's nothing crazy enough happening here on our turf. Let's bring in some random skirmish that's happening across the globe. Let's just pick one. Have you ever asked yourself the question why the media shines the spotlight on certain things but not others? Because there's atrocities happening all over the planet, right? And for some reason, they don't get the limelight like certain ones do. It's like, oh crap, it's getting a bit quiet on the front here. Quick, we need to wheel out the old faithful of like, I don't want to say any of them, to be honest, but you know what I mean, right? Like, there's situations that tend to just reemerge when there's a bit of a flat spot, and it's like, quick, wheel it out. We need some stress out, and we need some division out there again, and it just goes on and on and on. And one of the jobs I think that we have is sort of being, people playing with getting jacked up on using interacting and integrating universal forces is because we don't want to just knock the fire hydrant over. We want to tap into that and become accustomed to it, right? Is that there's an incremental process of introducing ourselves to new types of tensions and stresses in the form of universal forces so that we can like I said, become accustomed and acclimatize ourselves and, almost get like an immunity. Ugh, I don't like using that word for obvious reasons. But and one of those things is exposing ourselves to certain types of stresses. And, I tell you what, man, everyone should be pretty well armored up over the last 4 or 5 years, shouldn't they? But I tell you, the trauma, man, far out. I did pretty well. I was pretty isolated for a while because I was living by myself back then, and that was fine. I just went deep into the stillness, man, into the training and that, and study in that. But I mean, that amount of time to have your world, the ability to go and buy food, all of these weird kinds of like situations that were born where people were just like getting on Team Mandate and getting dressed up and buying the T-shirt and singing praises and all of the sort of there's people that like to control. We call them control freaks, and a lot of them were empowered. They came out of the woodwork. And it was freaky to see, these people screaming and yelling to, wear a thing or get a thing or whatever. And, all they had was this emotional charge behind their screaming, and it was just real. But the thing is, that sort of thing wasn't being discouraged, not in any real sense, but people who had a balanced tone in their articulation, who had reasonable, rational concerns, were being pushed out of the way or silenced or shut down. I mean, there was no live televised debates. For me, in the modern era, that's just like, that should be standard operating, man. That should be a baseline. Let's get the best of the best up there. It's got to be live, and it's got to be out to the masses, and everyone, we need to know what's going on. Yeah. This is why I tell you what, man, getting into some kind of practice, if you go through those Reiki precepts and start to pump them into your astral field, because that's some of the best benefit there. You can help other people heal just by being in their presence. You're not trying to heal them. You're actually just cultivating yourself, and you emanate, you seriously, some people watching this might be like, what? Basically, you can form a bubble of chi around your body, right? Vital energy, what do you want to call it? Astral energy, blah, blah, blah. And you can expand that so that you're encompassing yourself. You can walk down the main street and people are going to walk through that. You're going to wipe people with your field, with your high vibes, baby. Oh yeah, where's my flower, man? Where's my rose tinted glasses and that? No, seriously. You can become a very potent agent of positive change in the world by using these practices, but maintaining a very pleasant disposition and composure, and having things like, it's funny, pardon me, one of the Reiki precepts is be true to yourself and true to your way. Isn't that interesting? Pardon me, using becoming an alpha tuning fork of truth, of the seeking of genuine truth, the truth that's hard won, that may be confronting, but it's like, well, of course it's challenging, because some of the best things in life, some of the best fruits at the top of the tree, right? But I mean, I've got to say, when all this craziness was going on back in the 2020s, especially, I was very vocal about it, and man, it just burnt me out. It burnt me out. And then by the end of 2021, man, I was actually unwell. Not from anything that was going around. I was just crazy. I was just burnt out. And I had changed my tack, and I went from being sort of antagonistic and confrontational about it to what? That angle hasn't worked. And I was having, let's just say, information and messages coming through saying, not from the physical realm as such, but saying, bro, you need to chill out. You got important stuff to say, but you need to have a break, chill out, and don't be so, in people's faces about it. And I recognize that was an important part of the journey too, because, full frontal blunt trauma with information is actually that's a very special tool in the tool belt. Not every job needs a sledgehammer. Sometimes that little ball peen is all you need. But yeah, things were pretty tense back then. And how does it go? I came up with a bit of a thing, nudge, jostle, jolt, in that order. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. Bro, come on, bro. Come on. Bro, come on. Nudge. Come on, bro. Jostle. Bro, come on, man. Come on. Jolt. Bro. We don't want to see the people we care about get hurt unnecessarily by listening to people who are known liars, do we? What sort of responsibility do we have to ensure that, because, man, I struggle sleeping sometimes when I'm seeing people doing stupid shit. I want to say something. Problem is that I know that they're not going to be receptive to it. So it's like, what's a better way? How can we wrap that turd in something that they're going to entertain? Oh, I know I'm using a lot of colloquialisms here. It's kind of the humor I use to sort of soften the nature of what's going on, because I think on one hand, this is all part of a master plan, isn't it? This stuff's allowed to happen lawfully. There's a lawfulness, and don't get me wrong. Just because somebody says something and they say, "Don't worry, it comes back on me." Who's more Who's more morally culpable? Who wears the brunt of the karma? The order giver or the order follower? These are important things to consider because people lie. People say things that aren't true. And the face that people put out when, their public face and their private face don't always match up, man. Oh, man, Angelo, I was connected with a lot of local business people, and we had suicides. We had businesses shutting down. We had insane mental health issues. Insane. People with families and things. Then they said, yeah, you can go back to work, but you got to get the squirt. But it goes against, and I know I took plenty of people, no, I'm not going to get that. No, I don't need to get that. And then the government put it on the peeps and said, you got to get the squirt. And they put it on businesses to enforce it as well, which sort of like passed the buck as far as the potential liability goes. This establishment infrastructure can be repurposed in a heartbeat. That's why this centralized kind of management of the next thing by this one of these 3-letter unelected organizations like the WHO, they want global management of the next, this pandemic treaty thing. And that's scary. Basically, governments hand over their enforcement infrastructure to some foreign agency, we're going to send a few of ours over to manage your enforcement infrastructure and your medical establishment, your cops and your military and things like that. I mean, it's. I mean, I've had people say to me, "Look, there is no globalist government like New World, this kind of thing." I'm like going, maybe not obviously, but it's heading that way. It's not apparent now. Now, we all know about lobbying and about, government actually doesn't really sit that high on the totem pole. It's, whatever. And, people say, oh, it's the Rothschild or it's the corporations. I'm like going, man, you're still lowballing it. We've got a really interesting year coming up next year. In fact, you know what? While I'm here, I'm gonna do a bit of a reading while I'm here. I'm just going to pull a card out, and 2 just jumped out. Perfect. So we got change, the cycle, the constant, the only constant, and we've got this. I don't know. You guys might not be into tarots and stuff like that, but man, I tell you, I have far too many interesting conversations with these cards and other people when I do readings. So I'm cool with it. I think about how fast things can flip, and how things can just get to the point where it's like people get pushed to the, to the absolute. They get pushed over the edge, and this came up first and then this one, but it could be either. Things can get to the point where it's not dead. It's dead, man. It's done dead. It's been what's that quote from The Simpsons? They'll kill you 3 times before you know it. Killed by death. Man, I am so grateful for you guys. I think, what's coming up next year? I'm not going to pull a card on that. Oh, no, I don't have to because one jumps out. Yeah, it's the same one again. I think it's going to get pushed to the point of like people are just going to go, this is just ridiculous. I mean, so many people have changed their tune over the last bunch of years because they're like, they went along with it, and a lot of people went along with it because we felt like we needed to trust a little bit, right? And some of us went against our best, and we just went with it, and it ended up being a shit show. But I think people are a little bit wiser. But I'm also like, what card are they going to play next? Mind the pun. I think that there's definitely, I mean, they're really warming it up. I had a whole bunch of like UFO stuff come up on my YouTube feed the other day, and I don't really look at UFO stuff like I used to. And they're painting them up as a threat. That's the current thing that's doing the rounds. Is that Luis Elizondo chap, who's ex Pentagon sort of broadcasting, like the latest whistleblower. And it was they were seeing these as threats. And so I think that this is going to play, after seeing some of what they can do with drones at, Burning Man. I haven't been to Burning Man, but I saw some stuff. I'm like going, like the tech that's available, the consumer level stuff that we see, even the impressive stuff on YouTube, do you really think that the most advanced tech is on show for everyone to see? These fellas don't play all their cards, right? I got a mate who sorted his cancer out with cannabis oil, and he was given up by the establishment 6 months after taking this. And this was full extract cannabis oil, I might say. He's got all the documentation. He went to 2 oncologists, and they were like, how the hell did you do this? You had stage 4, 300 plus tumors. He had some surgery that they bollocksed up, and his bloody lower intestine and one of his bowels leaked in, and oh my gosh, it was terrible. And this guy's 65, and he was told to get his affairs in order. And then one of the other boys showed up and says, "Hey man, you want to try something?" And he's like, "Man, I'll try anything." Because this guy was he was only 65. That's not that old nowadays, And he was a real active dude, musician, and great musician. And one of the bros showed up and says, "Here, try this." And he took it. 6 months later, on his next scan, all the tumors were gone. I saw a photo of this guy when he was right in the thick of it. Man, he was nothing. He was down to nothing, man. 6 months after taking this stuff, the oncologists look at his thing and say, "Oh my gosh, how did you do this? This is incredible." He said, "Oh, I took the FICO, the full extract stuff. Not the whatever it is they push over the counter and make legal." And they said, "Oh yeah, we know about that. This is people in the medical establishment. This is my mate, and he's a straight up dude." He said, "Yeah, they said we know about it, but we're not supposed to talk about it." I mean, you're not allowed to grow a tree in your backyard that you can use to cure your problems, sort your problems out. You got to go and ask for permission, right? And this leads to a deeper issue, man. Like what's going to happen next? And it's going to be real enough that enough of the populace will probably buy into it. And then we're all kind of swept along for the ride. I mean, if it wasn't so tragic and insidious and evil what happened recently, it'd be almost like, hey, this is kind of interesting and fun. But it's, they're setting up the man, they went hard with this last thing, eh? They outdid themselves. And they pushed things over the line that would normally be just, I honestly just couldn't believe it, eh? The fact that they got away with what they did, but they had a lot of that stuff set up. A friend of mine who was ex-police taught me how to drill down onto the legislation website on our government website, and to learn to read between the lines and about how things can be made quite vague so that it leaves the door open for other more specific things. And once I started reading this and having things pointed out to me, I suddenly went, oh. And it's like, but there's plenty of good people that are in Parliament, aren't there? Well-meaning people. I don't know, man. I've seen some people get up and talk and they look like they're hollowed, or that something else is talking through them. Saw one of Ardern, our previous Prime Minister, that was like, Once you get into certain things and you become more observant, things like body language and that, and it's like, man, that, yeah, there's just, you start asking, especially once you start developing your sense capabilities, you start, especially if you're going down the clairsentience route, it's not something you see or you hear. It's more that you just get a feeling or a kind of a knowing. You're not sure how, and that's okay. That develops in time. Oh, yeah, that's always kind of been on the plate, isn't it? Yeah, there's always warmongering going on, and we need some people will say it's because it's part of the money making machine. A lot of innovation has come from that, from war, from the necessity, from the pressure that brings. It's a path for warriors to take, for people on the warrior path. I don't think we'll not ever have war. It's just not a thing. It happens at some point. Um, there's always going to be souls that incarnate here whose job it is to stir things up. Things can't get stagnant. But here's the thing, right? We got the internet. I know when they dropped that, they knew it was a double-edged sword. It's liberated a lot of people. It's enslaved a lot of people. And I tell you right now, the kids are the most sought after asset, capturing the minds and hearts of impressionable and ideological, people, young people looking for a cause. They're exploring their their emotions in their teenagerhood and their teenager years. They can get captured, and directed towards things. We've got an issue here in New Zealand where there's a lot of young men who are a bit disenfranchised, if you will. They're a bit lost. It's an interesting time to be a man, whatever that means. And young men, what do they do when they're a bit lost and can't find what they're looking for? Man, I tell you what, there's a gang just waiting, and there's lots of gangs now. When I was working in trucks and diggers, New Zealand was quite a unique market because at the time, I think there were 25 or 26 truck manufacturers in the world, the big players. We had all of them represented here. We've got this insanely oversaturated market with all of these brands and things. Like if you go to Sweden, chances are you're either going to see a Volvo or a Scania. Maybe they'll have a few others too, of course. But we've got a bit of everything here. And that's the same with we're very multicultural here, especially in Auckland, where I live, and that brings some beautiful, wonderful things. I have to say, just my gosh, it also brings a lot of new challenges. And especially when you've got large influx of huge quantities. We had 200,000 migrants come into this country over the last year, and we had 137,000 people leave. The leave rate is getting bigger. We have intensified population condensing happening here. Where there was one house, now there's 6. Where there was one house, now there's 10. We've just got, it's just insane. And I'm sure you guys have probably got the same thing going on. My understanding is that it's a United Nations related conversation. They relaxed all the building laws here so that they could, they could just basically start throwing houses up without all the red tape. We've got some pretty ugly and hideous looking houses. And I tell you what, there's one down the road here. I live in a very nice area. This is a very nice area. Right by the beach. We've got a beautiful little main street here, a little village. It's an expensive place. We've got some of the flashest schools, if you will, in the area. And, there's more rubbish now. There's more boy races. there's more people, there's which is fine, but there's more strain on the infrastructure and these types of things. It's quite challenging. I've got to say that talking about this stuff wears me out, so I'll probably just switch off this a little bit. But yeah, I mean, developing internal capacities for managing these upcoming challenges is a really good idea, I think, because who knows what's going to happen next. And if you're developing sensitivity, you can't help but be sort of like notice what's going on in the group, in the collective, whether it's a local one or a global one or whatever, regional, whatever. These egregores they're a real thing, man. And it's really great that I've been able to have people like Bob and Mark on to talk about them and how it relates to what we do as well. It's relevant. But I remember sitting here and I'm sitting down, and while the propaganda was getting pushed, the regular go get the thing, go get, like, it was relentless, man. And I'm like, no, I'm not getting it. That's it. Like, I don't, I started looking after my own health, and things just turned around real fast. And, but yeah, I remember sitting there once, and it was the heat of the season of, like, it was a full on push. And for a moment I heard this in my head, maybe I should just go get it. I was like, what the hell? Where did that come from? That is an honest share. And I think it's good to acknowledge when we have these kinds of experiences. We don't have to share them with other people, but to go, oh, maybe I have got a crack in the shell where undesirable data is entering in. So building that sphere around you, getting used to shaping energy to encapsulate you, and then packing it, like accumulating it and condensing it, and then charging it with protection, or getting or being specific about it. Generalizing is pretty good, because when you're walking down the main street, especially if you're getting more and more sensitive, there's a lot of grunge out there. There's a lot of stressed out people with funky habits. There's a lot of people carrying all sorts of hitchhikers and things too. So yeah, those of you guys who are on the development pathway, I salute you, because it's not easy. And, it's having this kind of community opportunity set up like we've got here, where we can have real conversation about it. And, I not everyone who's been on this channel would probably appreciate a lot of the things that I've said, but we don't have to talk about that on those interviews. If anything, the original idea of this channel was really just to sort of provide enthusiasm, inspiration, and get everyone practicing. It was to help me keep on top of my practice too. I'm not as disciplined as I would like to be on certain things. I've got to say, when you find something you really like, you tend to sort of put more time aside for it, and you're more enthusiastic about it. That's why I have to say this, the KTQ stuff is so good. It's very fast. It's very immediate. It's very potent. It's also very powerful in the respect that you got to be respectful of it, because it's different to just doing the elements and the initiation process. And so, yeah, you got to approach it with a different kind of, a different level of, you got to be cautious, but you don't have to throw away fun and enjoyment. There's ways to, get on a motorbike and have a lot of fun, but still know that there's things that you don't do. Right? So yeah. But yeah, I mean, just planning ahead. I kind of think there's certainly a growing division in society, but there's a lot of people who are finding solid ground under their feet because they weren't satisfied. They dared to ask the questions, and they were surprised by the emotional response of like, I'm just asking a question, man. And I think empowering balanced, not debate or argument, but just conversation and pointing things out. Some things are so challenging, though, aren't they? The idea that there is a nefarious, large thing going on. When you've got establishments around the globe all singing the same song, and you can find flaws in that song that they should know about, and they probably do. It's like, ooh. And then some countries didn't, but then they did other things. Yeah. But anyways, life's still good, eh? As challenging as it might be in any given moment, there's beauty out there. Man, we got so many beautiful flowers at the moment. I got to say, it's a bit of a pleasure, actually. Got lots of native birds. They don't care. They just get on with it. And I think this brings up a little bit of maybe some of the challenges that we may face when reading through the Barden material. In regards to, there's a book. What's it called? Is it? It's not Questions and Answers, and I think it's in the Universal Master Key, the one that the community put together. Oh, excuse me. I think they got re-released as under a Czech Hermetics book. But some of the things, some of the conduct that Mr. Barden recommends, basically acquiesce to authority, was one that I read, because he wasn't ruffling any feathers when he was put in those concentration camps. And when one of the guys paralyzed someone with a bunch of people and then got killed for using, I think, the story goes, it was in Frabato, he used the letter K or something, whatever. And how real that story was, regardless. The general inference, though, from those two sources of the same author sort of decry the idea of courage in the face of, but obviously their situation was quite a bit different. But yeah, at what point do we go, well, the right thing to do is this, and I know it's the right thing to do, and my gosh, it takes some courage. And how do we dismiss the right thing to do? It's kind of like speaking out against things, going deep, questioning the official line. Yeah. I think it's a matter of how we do it. I think it's the way that we dance the dance that we'll get scored on at the end of this round. So I think when we're seeking to create harmony through harmonious means, some people's approach will be, using the cannon or the double-barreled blunt approach, the blunt trauma type approach of beating you over the head with information. The problem with that is that forcefully imposing information, it's okay when certain groups do it, but not when you're trying to talk to a friend. For some reason, it's okay when XYZ does it, but not when it's you or your friend. It's a bit strange like that. I look at some of these people who claim to be, they're called the ministers of health or something like that, and I'm looking at them going, bro, you're not healthy. You don't look healthy. If you're going to say that you are leading a large department on this topic, I'd like to see some reflection in that. I'd like to see that being represented, you know. But yeah, like I said, it's a beautiful opportunity, no matter where we are, to find value and harvest spiritually beneficial utility, if we will, and to keep that as the kind of sort of the general kind of modus operandi for how we walk. That serves us well, right? Now, I just want to say, guys, if you haven't already, do me a favor. If you enjoy what I do on this channel, and it's changing, it always will, please consider not just checking it out, but sign up for a membership there. You don't have to pay. You can if you want. I think it's like a $5 or $6 membership, but there's an email address option there where you can sign up for the newsletter. And basically what it is that when the next bunch of crazy rocks around and suddenly YouTube kicks us all off, we can stay in touch via email if you want to. Substack's going to be rocking a live streaming service at some point. I've put my name down for it. I want to encourage people to wander away from some of these usual suspects. We want to find good platforms, though. You know, like I had a crack with Odyssey, but I don't think they've tightened up that much yet, and it's still a bit of a ghost town, that one. But Substack's good because it's pretty simple, and so simple user interface, simple creative process. And I have to say, I'm finding some of the most intelligent conversation on the net on Substack because people aren't being censored there. It's wild. You better believe it's wild on there. They have community standards, but they're nothing like what you get on Facebook and YouTube. But you go to Substack and you have a rock through there. There's a lot of people showing up on there. You got Michael Tessarian just started a blog on there. You've got John Rappaport, the great investigative reporter, who's just creaming it on there, man. I think he's got close to 70,000+ subs on there now. And that bro's charging, man. People like good quality stuff, right? And the creators out there who can't put their stuff on YouTube and Facebook, they need a way to express. You know, the light gets to express too, even if the dark's putting the jackboot down and saying, oh, no, you don't. You push down over here, something's going to rise up over here, man. And I don't know how long Substack's going to be an option because a lot of them do get, taken. But the bottom line is that it's, on YouTube, all I have is your username. And maybe I can get your email address, but I'm not that kind of person who's going to go through your YouTube profile, get your address, and put it on my Substack. That's not me. That's up to you if you want to sign up. But the only, if I lose all my followers on YouTube for whatever reason, my followers, that word, subscribers, whatever, people who like to stay connected with what it is that I do, I got your email. I just dropped a blog the other day, and I even put a price tag on it. I haven't been putting price tags on anything. It's all been optional, but I'm actually making some stuff now going, you know what, if you fellas like what I do, here's an opportunity for just a coffee a month. I appreciate you guys, even just hanging out here, talking with me. It's pretty quiet in the comments there, which I found quite strange. Oh, here's one. Yeah, people forget pretty fast, don't they? It's funny too how these things will get referred to when they're convenient by the establishment, when it suits them, but when it doesn't, doesn't count because of this, and this. It's funny how you can rationalize your way out of common sense. It's like, bro, this doesn't make any sense. but this, and this. Well, I mean, you can spin it up any way you like. Like, bro, you need to get the thing. No, I'm not getting the thing. I actually, best example, I had a family member. She wasn't even really paying attention to all of the, the for and against conversation. She just says, I'm just not getting it. People are like, well, you should get it. You have to get it. It's like, oh, no, I don't have to get it. And no, I'm not going to get it. And I don't even have to give a reason why. It's just not happening. And like I said, they weren't informing themselves about anything. They're just like, no, I just don't. I'm not going to. And I thought that was beautiful. You got the right to choose and all of this. But if you don't, you're going to hurt somebody. It's like, yeah, anyway, it's a bit tiring, isn't it? That old conversation, that old chestnut. Supposed to be talking about magic and metaphysics, guys, but it's kind of hard not to bring in these other topics because these are influences that affect us, and we've got to find a way to reconcile, I guess, these things in a way so that we can carry on operating and functioning. Because if these things are weighing on us, it's going to affect our decision making. It's going to affect our ability to get peaceful and get into the still point. I mean, you think about, you think about like what stress does to people. People ain't going to be having mystical, magical experiences unless they're stress-induced ones, or they're getting, that stress is basically turning them into into a food source or a magnet for things that they don't really want. Getting still and peaceful, man. That's what I say, like going for an energy healing session with your local fluffy psychic tarot Reiki lady, something like that. Even though we might be like, oh man, I don't want to talk about, you don't have to. You can just say, hey, look, because I tell you what, those people who are peaceful and are flowery and are lovey-dovey and all that, sometimes that's just what you need, man. Even though they're going to talk about things that might make your face palm, especially if you're a metaphysician or something like that. But they're just going to, you say, look, I don't want to know about anything, because some of them are going to say things like, oh, I pulled this out of you, or you've got this going on, or, I don't want to know about any of that stuff. I just want the treatment. I don't want lots of smells and music. I just want some white noise. And I want, hands on or hands off sometimes, especially if we've been isolated. Man, you think about it, right? How many years of people being isolated, not getting that human touch, getting that intimacy? That's actually kind of scary, eh? How that can, the societal impact of not being basically everyone has suddenly become a potential threat. Back in a sec. Oh, hello everybody. Welcome back. Oh my gosh, there's more people in the chat. Hello everybody. Well, that's kind of funny because the stream is actually going to end shortly because you guys haven't supported me enough so I can get the upgrade to the streaming software. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go make a cup of tea, and then I'm going to come back down and I'm going to start another stream just to carry on because it sounds like people want to hang out. So if you guys want to just give me like 5 minutes, I'm going to end the broadcast and then I'll be back on. Okay, I'll see you guys again shortly.